My family told me I'd never amount to anything. Now they brag about me, like they always supported me. For most of my life, I was nothing more than the family disappointment. Every gathering, every conversation, every side-eyed glance was a reminder of what they thought of me. I was the dreamer, the fool, the one wasting my time chasing something that would never happen. "You need to be realistic," my father had said one evening, his voice laced with condescension as he swirled his fine coffee glass. "Not everyone is meant to be successful. Some people just exist. Some people." He meant me. "Why can't you be more like your cousin Michael?" my mother had added, sighing dramatically. "He has a stable job, a house, a good life. Meanwhile, you're still running around acting like the world is going to hand you a golden ticket." It didn't matter that I was working harder than any of them ever had. It didn't matter that I was building something from nothing, pushing myself past exhaustion to carve out a future I could be proud of. They had already decided I was a failure before I had even started. I was the joke of the family, the one they whispered about behind closed doors, the one they barely acknowledged unless it was to remind me of how I was falling behind. But that was years ago. Now everything had changed. It started subtly. A casual mention at a family gathering. A passing comment from an aunt who had once looked at me like I was a lost cause. "You know, we always knew you had potential," she said, smiling as if she hadn't spent years ignoring me. "You were just a late bloomer?" I had almost laughed. A late bloomer. The same woman who had once shaken her head at me in pity was now acting like she had been my biggest supporter all along. And it didn't stop with her. My mother, who had once sighed at the very mention of my career, now boasted about me like she had been cheering me on from the sidelines. "Oh, my son. He's doing so well now. We always told him he could do it. He just needed to find his way." Lies. Bold-faced, shameless lies. But it didn't end there. Because soon, my father, the man who had once told me to settle for mediocrity, was suddenly bragging to anyone who would listen. "Yeah, my kid's a real success story. I always told him to keep pushing, to never give up. It's in the blood, you know. Hard work runs in the family." I had to physically stop myself from choking on my drink when I overheard him saying that. Hard work runs in the family? The same man who had mocked me every step of the way? The same father who had dismissed my dreams as childish nonsense? Now he was acting like he had been my guiding force? It was surreal. They weren't just acknowledging my success. They were claiming it, twisting the past, erasing the years of doubt, the ridicule, the absolute certainty they had that I would never amount to anything. And the worst part? Other people believed them, because they said it with such conviction, with such carefully crafted enthusiasm, that no one would ever guess the truth. That these were the same people who had done everything they could to break me. At first, I let them talk. I watched them bask in their false narrative, pretending they had always been my biggest cheerleaders. I observed as they rewrote history, framing themselves as loving, supportive parents who had simply been pushing me to be my best. It was infuriating, but also interesting. Because while they were busy celebrating my success, they were conveniently ignoring their own failures. My cousin Michael, the golden boy they had always compared me to, his stable job had turned into an unstable financial mess. He had made all the right choices, followed the practical path, and still somehow ended up struggling. And yet, no one talked about that. No one whispered about his failures the way they had whispered about mine. It was as if my success had given them an escape route, a way to pretend that their judgment had never been flawed in the first place. But I wasn't going to let them get away with it. The moment finally came at a family gathering, one of those forced, tension-filled events where everyone pretended to be closer than they actually were. I had kept my distance most of the evening, sipping my drink, listening as my mother gushed to some distant relatives about how proud she was of me. I let it go on for a while, let her spin her web of lies, let her indulge in the fantasy she had created. And then, when the moment was right, I struck. "That's funny," I said, setting my drink down, my voice cutting through the conversation like a blade, "because I distinctly remember you telling me I'd never make it." The room fell silent. My mother's face froze, her practiced smile faltering for just a second before she recovered. "Oh, honey, you're exaggerating. We just wanted you to be realistic." I tilted my head, letting the weight of my stare settle on her. Realistic? Is that what you call laughing at me? Is that what you call constantly comparing me to Michael? Telling me I was wasting my time? Her fingers tensed around her glass. We were just trying to motivate you. Motivate me? I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. No, you weren't trying to motivate me. You were trying to break me. My father, who had been silently watching, finally spoke. Watch your tone, he said, his voice edged with warning. We're still your parents. I turned to him, my expression unreadable. And what does that mean exactly? That I should just forget everything? That I should pretend you didn't belittle me for years? That I should smile and let you rewrite history? His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. I leaned back, exhaling slowly. You didn't believe in me. None of you did. And that's fine. But what's not fine is standing here, pretending like you did, like you were part of this success. You weren't. You don't get to claim it now. The silence that followed was suffocating. Faces turned away, glasses were sipped from. People shifted uncomfortably, unsure how to react. Because they knew I was right. And finally, so did they. My parents had no response, no justifications, no weak excuses. Just the cold, hard truth staring them in the face. And as I stood there, watching them squirm under the weight of their own hypocrisy, I realized something. I didn't need their validation anymore. I never had. I left that night without another word. I didn't wait for an apology that would never come. Didn't seek out closure from people who had never truly cared. Because I had already won. Not just in success, not just in proving them wrong, but in freeing myself from the need for their approval. They could talk all they wanted. They could rewrite history, paint themselves as heroes in a story where they had been nothing but villains. There's a strange kind of rage that comes with watching people rewrite history in real time. It's not the hot, explosive anger that burns fast and wild. No, it's something colder, something that lingers in the bones, something that makes you want to sit back and watch them destroy themselves with their own lies. I had given them their moment. I had let them twist the past, had watched as they smiled and nodded and played the role of supportive parents, doting relatives, the people who had always believed in me. But that night at the family gathering, when I had exposed their hypocrisy in front of everyone, something shifted. The air around us became thick with unspoken truths, with tension that no one wanted to acknowledge. And yet, despite the discomfort, despite the looks of quiet shame and avoidance, my parents refused to let go of the story they had crafted. If anything, they doubled down, because when people lie for long enough, they start to believe it themselves. A week later, I found out just how far they were willing to go. I was scrolling through social media, casually checking updates from people I barely spoke to, when a post caught my attention. It was from a distant cousin, someone I hadn't seen in years. The caption read, "Family means everything." So proud of my cousin for his success. His parents raised him right, and below it, there was a photo. A picture of me. One of the few times I had reluctantly taken a family photo with my parents. I recognized it immediately. It was from years ago, back when I was still trying to prove myself to them, back when I still thought they would ever be proud of me. But it wasn't the photo that made my stomach turn. It was the comments. My mother had left a reply. "We always knew he had it in him. We worked so hard to guide him toward success, and now it's paying off." I stared at the words, my grip tightening around my phone. We worked so hard to guide him. I had spent years clawing my way through failure, through sleepless nights, through rejection after rejection. I had endured their mockery, their dismissal, their constant comparisons to others. And now, in front of the world, they were painting themselves as the architects of my success. It was beyond infuriating. But I wasn't going to respond. Not yet. No, I wanted to see just how far they were willing to go. It didn't stop with a social media post. It was as if, after being called out at the family gathering, my parents had decided that the only way to regain control of the narrative was to spread it even further. I started hearing from people I hadn't spoken to in years, former teachers, old family friends, distant relatives who had never bothered to check in when I was struggling. "Your parents are so proud of you." They always talk about how they knew you'd be successful. Your mom told me about how much they supported your journey. What an inspiring family story. Every word felt like another slap in the face. It was like watching a slow-moving car crash, except the people driving the car were the ones who had once left me stranded on the side of the road. They had rewritten reality so thoroughly that others were now believing it. And the worst part? They were enjoying it. I could see it in the way my mother beamed when people congratulated her, the way my father puffed his chest whenever someone mentioned my achievements. They weren't just lying to protect their image anymore. They were thriving off of it, but I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I decided to pay them a visit. Not because I wanted some heartfelt reunion, not because I thought there was anything left to salvage, but because I wanted to watch them squirm. When I knocked on the door, my mother opened it with a bright, rehearsed smile, as if she had been expecting me. "Sweetheart," she gushed, stepping aside to let me in. "This is a surprise." I stepped inside, my eyes scanning the house that had never really felt like home. It looked the same. Pictures of my brother and cousin Michael still dominated the walls, while my presence was an afterthought, tucked away in a single outdated frame. My father sat in his usual chair, barely glancing up from the newspaper. "Finally decided to visit?" he muttered, flipping a page as if he wasn't the reason I had stayed away for so long. I didn't waste time. "I saw what you wrote online," I said, cutting straight to the point. "How you guided me, how you supported me." My mother's smile faltered just slightly, but she recovered quickly. "Oh, that? Sweetheart, we were just sharing how proud we are of you." I let out a short, sharp laugh. "Proud? You spent years telling me I was wasting my time, that I'd never be successful. But now that I am, suddenly you are my biggest supporters?" She placed a hand on her chest, feigning hurt. "We were just pushing you to be your best." I turned to my father. "And you?" "You told me to be realistic, that not everyone is meant for success." He didn't even blink. "And look at you now." I narrowed my eyes. "No thanks to either of you." The air in the room shifted, the weight of my words settling heavily between us. They had never expected me to confront them like this. They had thought I would let it go, let them bask in their manufactured version of the past. My mother sighed, shaking her head. "Why are you bringing this up now? We're just trying to be a family again." "Are you?" I tilted my head. "Or are you just trying to save face now that people actually care about my success?" She pursed her lips. "Why does it matter? What's done is done." I exhaled sharply through my nose, shaking my head. "It matters because I did this without you, and you don't get to pretend otherwise." They didn't respond, because they knew, and they knew I wasn't going to let them keep lying. I didn't stay long. I didn't need to. The damage had already been done. The discomfort in their expressions told me that they were realizing that I wasn't going to play along with their story. And more importantly, I wasn't going to let anyone else believe it either. The next day, I posted my own message online. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't even angry. It was just honest. Success is a journey filled with struggles, failures, and lessons. Mine was no different. I built everything I have through hard work, determination, and sacrifice. And I did it without the support of those who should have believed in me the most. People will try to rewrite history when it benefits them. But the truth? The truth is something they can never take away from you. I didn't mention my parents by name. I didn't have to. But the message was clear. And when I checked back hours later, I saw my mother's post had been deleted. There's a point where the past stops haunting you, not because it disappears, but because you finally take control of it. For years, I had let my family's words, their doubts, their dismissals define me. I had carried the weight of their disapproval, let it fuel me, let it push me forward. But now they weren't the ones shaping the narrative anymore. I was. After I exposed their hypocrisy online, I expected backlash. I thought my parents would retaliate, that they would call me, berate me for humiliating them. But instead, I was met with silence. A telling, suffocating silence. And then, slowly, the cracks began to show. It started with whispers, subtle at first, then louder. Extended family members who had once swallowed my parents' lies without question began reaching out, asking questions they had never considered before. I had no idea they never supported you. I always thought they were so proud of you. Why would they lie about it? And just like that, their perfect version of the past, where they had been the guiding force behind my success, began to unravel. The more people questioned, the more desperate my parents became. My mother tried to maintain the illusion, clinging to her role as the proud, supportive matriarch, but cracks were forming. The carefully curated image she had built was crumbling, and she had no idea how to stop it. Then came the final blow. A former teacher of mine, someone who had witnessed firsthand how my parents treated me growing up, commented under my post, "I remember when your mother told me you'd never make it. Funny how things change, isn't it?" That was the moment everything shattered, because now there was proof. Now it wasn't just my word against theirs. Now there were people, outsiders, validating the truth they had spent years trying to bury, and they had nowhere left to hide. 2 weeks after my post went viral, I got the call. I let it ring, watching my mother's name flash across the screen. Part of me considered ignoring it, but another part, the part that wanted to see just how far they had fallen, made me answer. I put the phone on speaker, leaning back in my chair. "What do you want?" There was a pause, then a deep sigh. "We need to talk," she said, her voice carefully measured. "Face to face." I almost laughed. "Now you want to talk? After years of dismissing me? After lying to everyone about how much you helped me?" Her tone wavered. I want us to fix this. We're still family." That word again. Family. A word they had only ever used when it benefited them. But against my better judgment, I agreed. Not because I wanted to fix anything, but because I wanted to see, with my own eyes, the consequences of their own actions. I met them at their house. Once a place filled with judgment, now just another building. It no longer held power over me. It no longer felt like home. They were waiting in the living room, sitting side by side, a united front like always. But they didn't look sure of themselves. They looked small. My mother spoke first. "We never meant to hurt you," I scoffed. "You never meant for me to call you out. That's the only reason we're here." My father exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand over his face. "Look, you made your point. You embarrassed us. What more do you want?" I tilted my head, studying him. "Embarrassed you?" I repeated, my voice dangerously calm. "You did that to yourselves. I just told the truth." My mother wrung her hands together, her usual mask of control slipping. We thought we were doing what was best. We didn't want you to get your hopes up for nothing." I let out a dry laugh. "So, instead of supporting me, you tore me down? Instead of believing in me, you made me feel like I was never enough?" She flinched. She didn't have an excuse. Good. Because I wasn't done. "I spent my whole life trying to prove myself to you," I continued. "And when I finally did, you stole my success and made it yours. You took credit for something you had nothing to do with." My father's jaw tightened. "And what do you want us to do about it now?" I leaned forward, my voice sharp. "I want you to admit it. To me, to yourselves, to everyone you lied to." Silence. Then my mother's voice, barely above a whisper. "We're sorry." But I shook my head. "Not good enough." Her eyes darted to my father, as if hoping he would step in. But for once, he had nothing to say. And that's when I realized this wasn't about an apology. They weren't sorry for what they had done. They were sorry they got caught. And I was done. Done waiting for validation. Done seeking closure from people who didn't deserve it. So I stood. "I'm not looking for an apology," I said, my voice steady. "I don't need one. I don't need anything from you anymore." Panic flickered across my mother's face. "Wait, no," I cut in. "You had your chance. For years, you had your chance. And you chose to tear me down instead." I exhaled, the weight of everything lifting from my shoulders. "But I'm done playing your game. You can keep telling people whatever you want. You can keep pretending. It doesn't matter anymore." My father frowned. "Then why come here?" I gave him a slow, measured smile. "To say goodbye." Then I walked out. That was the last time I saw them. I moved forward. I thrived. And this time, I did it without looking back. They tried to reach out. Calls, emails, messages filled with carefully crafted words designed to reel me back in. But I ignored them. Because I had finally won. Not just in success, not just in proving them wrong, but in taking back my own story. They could lie to themselves. They could lie to the world. But they could never lie to me again. And that was all the closure I would ever need. My mom forced me to drop out from my brother's college fund. Now she's begging me to take care of her. I remember the day my mother ripped my future from my hands with the same ease as she tore bills from the envelopes that always piled on our kitchen table. It was a humid afternoon, the kind where the air clung to your skin like an unwanted touch, suffocating and sticky. I had just gotten my acceptance letter, my golden ticket out of the suffocating cycle of struggle, of working double shifts at the dingy diner, of coming home to see my mother rubbing her temples, muttering about rent and tuition and sacrifice. For a fleeting moment, I had hope. My name was on that letter, printed in neat, formal script. I had earned this. I had worked my sweat and blood, balancing school and work, pulling late nights in the library while my brother Daniel partied his way through high school with the kind of reckless abandon only afforded to the favored. I had dared to dream, and then she took it from me. "You'll have to give it up," my mother had said, her voice carrying the same detached finality as when she decided what we were having for dinner. She barely looked at me, just shuffled papers on the table, bills, notices, tuition statements. "We don't have enough for both of you, and Daniel needs this more. He's got a real future ahead of him." A real future. As if mine was disposable. As if my ambition was a cheap knockoff, unworthy of investment. I had fought. I had begged. My voice had cracked as I tried to explain that I had earned my place, that I wasn't some spare part to be stripped for resources so that my golden boy of a brother could shine. But my mother, always so composed in her cold cruelty, had just shaken her head. "Family helps family," she had said, an iron verdict wrapped in a velvet lie. And that was it. My acceptance letter became scrap paper, crumpled in her fist. My dreams turned to dust beneath her heel. Daniel went to college, fully funded, while I watched from the sidelines. He thrived. My mother insured it. While he got the best dorm, the newest laptop, the tutors, and the paid internships, I got a job at a local warehouse, stacking boxes until my back ached and my fingers throbbed. While he studied abroad, tasting the world on a silver spoon, I counted pennies at the grocery store, wondering if I could afford both rent and electricity that month. While he graduated, my mother beaming with pride in every photo, I sat in my cramped apartment, the only light in the room coming from the cheap lamp I'd picked up at a thrift store, reading a book I would never get a degree for. She never once said thank you, not when I sent her money to help with the house, not when I covered Daniel's credit card bill after he accidentally overspent, not when I swallowed every bitter resentment just to keep going. I had sacrificed everything, and in return, I had become invisible. And then, one day, she called. At first I thought it was a mistake. My phone rarely rang unless it was my boss asking me to cover a shift or some scammer offering me a fake warranty. But there it was. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. She called again, and again. By the fourth time I answered, not out of concern, but out of curiosity. "Hello? I need you to come home." No greeting, no pleasantries, just a demand the same way she had always spoken to me, as if I were an afterthought, a spare cog to be slotted into place when the golden machine of her perfect life broke down. "Why?" I asked, my tone flat. There was a pause, a hesitation. That alone made my stomach tighten. My mother was never hesitant. She was decisive, ruthless, unwavering. Daniel's not here anymore." The words should have meant nothing to me, and yet something in her voice made them twist like a knife in my gut. Not here anymore. I knew what she meant. He was gone. Not dead. Oh no, that would be too neat, too final. My brother wasn't the type to meet some tragic fate. No, this was something worse. Daniel had left her, abandoned her, and now, suddenly, I mattered again. When I walked through the front door of the house I hadn't set foot in for years, The first thing that hit me was the smell of decay. Not literal rot, but the staleness of a home left to wither. The furniture was the same, the decor unchanged, but everything looked smaller, diminished, and so did she. My mother sat at the kitchen table, the very spot where she had once crushed my future with a single sentence. But now, the power was gone from her posture. Her once meticulously dyed hair was streaked with gray, her skin sallow, her eyes shadowed with something I had never seen in her before. Weakness. "Where's Daniel?" I asked, not because I cared, but because I wanted to hear it from her lips. She exhaled, long and tired. "He moved out. Took a job in another state. He doesn't have time to—" She stopped herself. I could hear what she wanted to say. He doesn't have time to take care of me, but I was supposed to. I almost laughed. The irony was delicious in a way I hadn't known I could savor. "You need money, don't you?" My voice was measured, cold, the same tone she had always used with me. She flinched. "I just a little help. The bills, the mortgage, I raised a hand, stopping her. "Let me get this straight," I said, stepping closer, watching as she shrank under my gaze. "You forced me to give up my future so Daniel could have his. You let me scrape by, ignored me, dismissed me, acted like I didn't exist. And now that your perfect son has moved on, you're expecting me to step in and save you?" Silence. It was the first time in my life I had ever seen my mother speechless. And God, it was satisfying. I could have left, walked out and never looked back. It would have been easy, but that wasn't justice. That wasn't the kind of reckoning she deserved. No, if she wanted my help, it would be on my terms, and those terms were going to be brutal. There is something exquisite about watching the powerful crumble. Seeing my mother sitting there, diminished, pleading, so different from the iron-willed woman who once dictated my fate, was intoxicating in a way I hadn't expected. This was the woman who had stolen my future with a cold, indifferent hand, who had dismissed my suffering as necessary for the greater good. Now that same woman was sitting in front of me, hollowed out by time and consequences, needing something from me, and I was in no hurry to give it. I took my time before speaking, letting the silence stretch, making her squirm. It was a new kind of power, one I had never been allowed to wield before. She had always been the one in control, the one making the choices. Now, the balance had shifted, and she knew it. "You didn't answer my question," I said, my tone measured, cool. "You need money, don't you?" Her lips pressed into a thin line, the way they always did when she was about to say something she didn't want to admit. My mother had always been prideful, arrogant even. The idea of asking for help, especially from the child she had discarded, must have tasted like poison on her tongue. "I wouldn't be asking if it wasn't important," she finally said, voice brittle. I almost laughed. Important. That word had never applied to me before. Not when I had begged to keep my scholarship. Not when I had struggled to keep a roof over my head. Not when I had been treated like an afterthought, a footnote in my own family. But now that she had no other option, now that Daniel had left her behind, suddenly I mattered. I leaned back against the kitchen counter, arms crossed. "What happened to Daniel?" Her jaw tightened. "I told you, he's busy." "Busy?" I repeated the word slowly, letting it hang between us. "Too busy to take care of you? Too busy to send money? Too busy to do what a real son should do?" She flinched at my words, and I knew I had hit a nerve. Good. Let her feel the sting. "It's not like that," she muttered. "He has a career now. He's working in finance, and he's got responsibilities. He can't just drop everything." "But I can?" I interrupted. "That's what you're saying, isn't it?" She looked away, hands clasped tightly together. She didn't need to say it. I already knew the answer. Daniel had been given every advantage, every ounce of support. He had been sent off to college with my sacrificed dreams padding his way. And what had he done in return? Left her behind. And now, the forgotten child was supposed to step in and pick up the pieces. The thought was almost laughable. Almost. But there was nothing funny about it. "How much do you need?" I asked, my voice devoid of emotion. She looked at me, eyes wary, as if she expected a trap. And maybe she should have. The mortgage is overdue, she admitted. And the medical bills. Medical bills? My gaze sharpened. She shifted uncomfortably, fingers tightening in her lap. I've had some health issues. Nothing serious, but the costs have added up. And without Daniel helping, I couldn't stop the bitter smile that curled my lips. Without Daniel helping. How poetic. You spent all those years pouring everything into him, I mused. And when he got everything he wanted, he walked away. Must be painful. Her face twisted. Don't talk about your brother like that. I tilted my head. Why not? It's the truth, isn't it? He got what he wanted and now he doesn't need you anymore. He's moved on and you're left to deal with the mess alone. Just like you left me. Her hands trembled slightly and she looked old, frail, not the towering force of authority I had grown up fearing, but just a woman who had gambled everything on the wrong. And yet, despite it all, a small part of me, some weak, lingering fragment of the child who had once craved her love, felt something almost like pity. Almost. I exhaled, pushing off the counter. Here's how this is going to work, I said. I'm not just going to hand you money. If you want my help, it's going to come with conditions. Her eyes narrowed. Conditions? That's right, I said smoothly. You want me to fix your mess? Then you're going to have to earn it. She bristled at the implication, but she didn't argue. Not this time. She couldn't afford to. I'll cover the mortgage for now, I continued. But that house, it's mine now. My name goes on the deed. You live in it because I allow it. And if you ever cross me again, I won't hesitate to take it from you. Her breath hitched, but I didn't stop. You're also going to start paying me back, I said. Every cent I give you comes with interest. You took my future from me. The least you can do is compensate me for what I lost. You're being ridiculous, she snapped, some of her old fire returning. I'm your mother. And I was your child, I shot back. That didn't stop you from throwing me away when it was convenient. You want my help now? These are my terms. Take it or leave it. She stared at me, her lips pressed together in a thin, bloodless line. I could see the war in her eyes, the battle between her pride and her desperation. In the end, desperation won. Fine, she said through clenched teeth. I accept. I nodded, satisfied. Good. It was the first real victory I had ever had over her, and I was going to savor it. But I wasn't done yet. There was still Daniel, and it was time for him to pay his debt too. Power is a strange thing. When you've lived your whole life without it, getting even a taste of it changes you. It sharpens you. It makes you see the world differently, see people differently. Standing in that kitchen, watching my mother swallow her pride like it was glass, I realized something. I wasn't just taking control. I was rewriting the past. For years, I had been the afterthought, the child left behind so that Daniel could shine. And now, Daniel was gone, and I was the only one left. But I wasn't about to let him escape the consequences of what he'd done. Not yet. I let my mother sit with her humiliation for a few days, giving her time to adjust to the new reality. She knew better than to call me unless it was important now, and when she did, her voice was careful, measured. The demands had stopped. The guilt trips had faded. She needed me more than I needed her, and that meant I had leverage. So, I used it. I went through the finances, combed through the mess she had made, and it was worse than I thought. The house was months away from foreclosure. The medical bills were stacking up, and Daniel, the perfect son, the golden child, he hadn't sent her a single cent. It was time for a conversation. I still had Daniel's number. He had never changed it. I didn't bother with pleasantries. When he answered, I got straight to the point. We need to talk. His voice was exactly as I remembered, smooth, confident, the voice of a man who had never known struggle. Wow. No hello? No. How have you been? You're still as bitter as ever, huh? I ignored the bait. It's about Mom. That got his attention. What about her? She's drowning, I said. The house is on the verge of foreclosure. She's buried in medical debt. And you? You haven't lifted a damn finger to help her. A long silence. Then a scoff. You're kidding, right? You think I have that kind of money lying around? I have my own life, my own bills to pay. You don't get it. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Oh, I get it. I get it better than anyone. You had a free ride, Daniel. I gave up everything for you, and now you're sitting in some cushy office pretending like none of it happened." His tone turned defensive. "That was Mom's decision, not mine. I never asked you to drop out." The sheer audacity of it made my grip tighten around the phone. "You didn't stop her either," I said, voice dangerously calm. "You took everything she handed you without a second thought, and now that she's in trouble, you don't think it's your responsibility?" "She made her choices," he said, unbothered, "and I made mine. I'm not getting dragged into this." "Yes, you are," I said flatly. He snorted. "And how exactly do you plan to do that?" I smiled, though he couldn't see it. "Simple. I own the house now." Silence. Then, "What?" "You heard me," I said smoothly. "Mom signed it over to me. It's legally mine. And if I wanted to, I could kick her out tomorrow." He inhaled sharply. "You wouldn't." "Wouldn't I?" I leaned back in my chair, enjoying the shift in power. "You know me, Daniel. You know what I've been through. Do you really think I wouldn't?" His voice was quieter now, cautious. "What do you want?" "Half," I said simply. "Half of everything you earn. You got your education on my back. You got your career because I was the one who lost mine. So now, you owe me." "You're out of your damn mind," he barked. "You think I'm just going to—" "You will," I interrupted. "Because if you don't, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly how you got where you are. Your employers, your colleagues, your fancy friends. I'll tell them all how your sister was forced to give up her future so you could have yours. How you abandoned your own mother when she needed you." His breathing was ragged on the other end. "That's blackmail." I smiled. "No, Daniel. That's justice." It took him 2 weeks to give in. At first he tried to fight it. He sent angry texts, tried to reason with me, even called Mom to get her to talk me down. But she was powerless now, and she knew it. Eventually the payments started coming in. It wasn't enough to undo what had been done. I would never get those years back. But it was a start. A repayment, in the only way that mattered. And it wasn't just about the money. It was about knowing that Daniel would never be able to enjoy his success without remembering that he owed it to me. That every paycheck he earned came with the knowledge that he had taken something from me. And now, I was taking something from him. And that was satisfaction. As for my mother, I made sure she never wanted for anything. But she never forgot that it came at my mercy. The power dynamic had shifted permanently. She no longer spoke to me with the same cold authority she once had. Every word was careful, every request hesitant. She knew that I could take everything away from her with a single decision. And yet, despite it all, there were moments when I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I saw it in her eyes sometimes. The regret. The unspoken knowledge that she had gambled everything on the wrong child. That she had thrown me away for Daniel, and in the end, Daniel had thrown her away. Did she ever truly love me? I would never know. And honestly, I didn't care anymore. I was free. Free from her expectations. Free from the weight of being the discarded child. Free from the burden of proving my worth to someone who had never seen it in the first place. She would live in the house that was now mine, knowing that every breath under that roof was because I allowed it. Daniel would send his payments every month, knowing that his success was never truly his own. And me? I would move forward. I wouldn't waste my life being bitter. I had power now, control, and I was going to use it to build the future I had been denied.